if you ever want to have a conversation about OutSystems or anything else really, maybe like how Benfica is not the best team in Portugal, as Paulo would claim to be, please feel free to talk to me, and we'll have that chat, all right? But without further ado, the table of contents, or the agenda. So, first of all, I want to touch on the OutSystems community, because I believe it is the glue, it is the beating heart of what we do as OutSystems developers. And then I'm going to delve into the OutSystems Ladder, we define it, we look at the different steps, and then I'm going to delve into each step and talk about the common doubts and challenges that we face in each of these steps and how to overcome them, all right? At the end, I'm going to be touching on a topic that's super interesting to me as well, which is the Phoenix Stacks formula, and this is going to be more targeted towards individuals, team leads, that are looking to further nourish and build OutSystems development teams, and how to do it in an effective manner. And I do believe the methodologies that we use, or the tools that we use within Phoenix DX are industry leading. So I want to share this with you as well. Cool. Let's start with the OutSystems community. So, like I said, I truly believe, and this conference is the biggest example of all, that the OutSystems community is the beating heart of what we do. It is 800,000 members strong, and ever come close to that big 1 million milestone. You've got over 200 advocates, 80 of which are MVPs, 1 or 2 champions, and it's great to see that this number is growing as well. 2 million courses completed, except I see where I'm going with this. There's a lot of different streams. There's a lot of different initiatives. There's a lot of different ways you can get assistance within the OutSystems community, but sometimes it can get a little bit overwhelming. You know, I just started OutSystems. There's forums and articles and user groups and Forge. I don't know where to go, right? And this is where I want to try to structure a little bit with the OutSystems Ladder, all right? Cool. What is the OutSystems Ladder? Well, the OutSystems Ladder is a guide which is going to help developers, again, regardless where you are on your OutSystems journey, in overcoming some of the main common challenges and doubts that you might face throughout your journey. Like I said, you can be someone who literally just figured out what OutSystems was yesterday, or someone who's been dabbling around OutSystems for the past 2-3 years. We're all going to be facing challenges, whether we like it or not. But the most important thing is how we overcome these challenges, right? And the OutSystems Ladder is really consisted of 3-4 steps. And rather than just referring to them as step 1, 2, 3, and 4, I want to associate each of these steps with a particular trait or mentality, mindset on where you would be on this particular ladder if you exhibit some of these questions. And you'll see exactly what I mean as I go through this. But step 1, I'm referring to as the skeptic, 2, curious, 3, enthusiast, and 4, the advocate. And a quick note on this as well, I do not believe that this should be treated from a time framing perspective. In other words, you shouldn't be a skeptic for 6.5 months before you are curious, or you shouldn't be curious for 4 years before you become passionate. That's definitely not how I see it. I think people invest time in things that they like at a different pace. So I can be someone who's fully invested in OutSystems, but I can only spend X amount of hours per day, per week on this. And it might take me a long time to transition from being a skeptic or someone who's curious to someone who's an enthusiast about the platform. So this is purely driven by your experience, how much exposure you've got from the platform so far, and what are the challenges you've been overcoming, all right? Let's start climbing this ladder, and let's start with the skeptic. Now, you would know that you're in the skeptic phase, or the person you're talking to is a skeptic. If they're asking questions like, okay, I've heard about systems, but I don't actually believe that it could do what you claim it to be. Or I don't know what are the use cases that we can do with OutSystems. Some other questions that you might receive is something along the lines of, can I actually make a career out of OutSystems? Can I specialize and can I have a full-time career in OutSystems? If you're hearing these questions, or if you're asking these questions for yourself, then you would typically be in step 1, a skeptic, and that's completely okay. All of us, including myself, have been skeptics. I originally started my journey as a Java developer, and I learned Java for a few years, and I thought I was on top of the world when I learned Java. Then OutSystems came along and was like, yeah, you know, all these things you learned in the past 3 years, forget about it, because you can do all of that in way shorter period of time. And of course, naturally, I was a skeptic. Like, no, there must be something wrong, etc. So we've all been there. The most important thing here is to know how to kind of overcome this skepticism, right? And before we talk about how we do that, some of the common doubts that we see for people within the skeptic range is, well, they don't know what the technical limitations of OutSystems, so I don't know whether I can build this or build that. The possible use cases, I don't know where it's been utilized before, or what are some of the main enterprise-grade challenges that OutSystems helped to solve out there. And of course, like we talked about before, career opportunities. But how do we overcome skepticism? Two things, I'm going to start super simple here. Number one, customer stories. There is a very well list of documented customer stories and use cases that OutSystems maintains on the public website. By the way, I am going to be adding a QR code to each of the suggestions that have a page you can visit online, so you can easily jump into that if you're interested. But customer stories is a really good place to start off if you're actually not sure what you can build in OutSystems, what's out there. It's got a collection of use cases in different industries, different scale of applications, different deployment options, different technical challenges that had to be overcome, and hence why OutSystems was utilized. Number one tip, customer stories. And then number two is connecting with OutSystems advocates. And conferences like these is a very good example of this. However, of course, not all of us are here in person. So one of the easiest ways to do this is there is a dedicated OutSystems advocate page on the OutSystems website. It has the list of all the OutSystems champions and OutSystems MVPs. And not everybody might know this, but you can actually message anyone on the OutSystems, message anyone via their OutSystems profile online via a direct message. So you can actually, for example, go through that OutSystems advocates, select a particular champion or MVP you want to connect with, and just reach out and just say, hey, I've got a couple of these messages in the past that I'm fully advocate for people actually doing this, because I know as an ex-developer and as us developers, we don't like to talk to people, essentially. So I know it's a challenge sometimes to do that, but I fully advocate for this. Just reach out and say, hey, I'm just starting with OutSystems. I don't actually know what it does. Can you give me some pointers? Where do I start from? Right? Now, once we start asking questions like, okay, I do understand what OutSystems can do. I've seen now the use cases. I can learn that, all right, it could be something that I can potentially utilize. My next chain of thought is going to be, well, is it going to be worth me as a developer picking it up or learning it? Some other questions might be, how healthy is this OutSystems community? Because of course, a lot of developers, and which is completely fair enough, when picking a new specialization, for instance, seeing the health of the community is a big factor to determine how attractive this particular platform is, and how much help I'm going to get if I get stuck. So how healthy is this OutSystems community? And some of the common doubts that you face as someone who's curious about the platform is community health, career opportunities, but of course, professional development. So, okay, I want to learn this. I want to see how hard is it for me to learn? How easy is it for me to get skilled up? Can I pick up a certification easily? Where can I get the training from, etc. And 3 pieces of advice here to satisfy curiosity. Number one, building an application that is actually useful for you. And I'm going to pause super quickly here to talk about a personal kind of experience that I had with this. And this, by the way, if you're going to take anything out of this session, I believe that this would be the number one point that I would say, and the number one point that worked for me personally. Back in around 2016, 2015, when I started playing around with OutSystems a little bit, I of course heard of OutSystems. I was in that curiosity stage, and I wanted to get to know the platform a little better. I want to see if it was a good fit for me. I want to start becoming better at it. But rather than building, a to-do app or a calendar app or a hello world, which you can do basically in Microsoft Excel at this stage, I wanted to build something that is actually useful, that I would use, because I knew if I build something that is going to be useful for me, I'm going to be motivated to continue working on it, and I want to see it till the end. So back then, I used to be a lot into the game FIFA, if you've heard of it, which is basically kind of football simulation game. You can control a football team, and you can play as that team. And there is a particular game mode within FIFA which is called career mode. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to actually control a particular team and play through a season, multiple seasons, as much as you want in order to kind of win these tournaments. Long story short, FIFA career mode had a big lack of statistics and showing you some of this info that as FIFA players we really wanted to see. So what I thought was like, okay, I've got OutSystems here. I want to learn how to build an application. I want to build an application which allows me to track all of this stuff. I want to start collecting this information. And that's what I did. It was on a traditional web application back then. And I did build a career mode tracker sort of app, which allowed me to input all of that progress that I was making on the application and start showing me some statistics that the game doesn't show. And towards the end of this experience, I started enjoying building the app more than actually playing the game, because I was like, oh, it'll be cool if I can see this particular stat. It'll be cool if I can add this page, which can show me this particular stat that the game doesn't tell me. So building an application that was actually useful for me back then was super, super important, right? And I would heavily recommend it. Number two, the guided paths. So over the last couple of years, OutSystems has done a really great job in starting to consolidate some of the existing training material that they had into something they're referring to as guided paths. And essentially what that means is that if I wanted to become a web developer, I've got a tailored training plan which I can follow, which allows me to be eligible for sitting for the certification, but more importantly, gives me the knowledge I need to build web applications. Similarly, if I want to specialize in mobile development, let's say front-end development, we've got now guided paths for that. So I would heavily recommend delving into these guided paths when we hit these knowledge challenges, because of course, at this particular stage when I'm still curious about a platform, naturally, I'm going to be hitting those knowledge gaps, right? Exploring the guided paths. And number three, join user groups. User groups is an extremely beneficial way and effective way of not only staying up to date in the OutSystems world, but also starting to interact with the community. And this is going to become super important as we go through the third and the fourth stage. But this is going to be a really good way to start, like I said, interacting with the community and getting to know about the latest things that OutSystems have been releasing, and engaging in conversations, right, with experts and advocates within the community. I do recall over the past few years, user groups have been very heavily tailored to what the market requires, or what's kind of the main key topics that are being discussed at the moment. One that jumps to mind is tech debt. So last year or 2 years ago, there was a whole series of user groups that were created to talk about the importance of tech debt and what we do, what should we do to resolve it, and what impact that has to businesses. More recently, of course, AI. Everything is AI. Between every sentence and every word, there's the word AI. There's a lot of user groups discussing this at the moment. Looking at it from an OutSystems perspective, from a practical point of view, what could you do and what you shouldn't be doing. So user groups, super important. There are user groups all around the globe, by the way, spanning across all time zones. So feel free to join the one that you want, one that makes most sense. But even if you can't, a lot of these user groups are pre-recorded as well. Right? Climbing a step further. So at this stage, you know, I've satisfied my curiosity. I understand what OutSystems does. I am passionate. Well, I didn't get there yet, but I am enthusiastic about this platform. Right? I want to take it a step further. So you would know that you've reached this stage because you're going to be asking questions like, right, I'm enjoying working on OutSystems project, but what can I do to get a little bit more involved? Right? How can I be a little bit more creative using this platform? And some of the doubts that you'd have at this stage is career sustainability. So yeah, maybe I was able to pick up a few gigs here and there when it came to OutSystems development, but can I continue this going? What's the path forward for me? Staying up to date is another important point here. So as an enthusiast, as someone wanting to push the platform to its limits, I need to know what the latest and greatest is, of course. So how can I do that? And then of course, unlocking creativity. So how do we maintain enthusiasm? Number one, by staying ahead of the curve. And the most effective way of doing this really is to subscribe to the OutSystems product updates page. So you can log into this page and you have the ability to actually drop your email address and actually be sent newsletters and updates on the latest features with OutSystems Service Studio, O11, ODC, Integration Studio, AI Mentor. Everything within the OutSystems ecosystem lives here, and that way it can be very easy to stay up to date. Number two, forge components. Now at this particular stage, you have gone through a significant part of your career, or you're actually accumulating that OutSystems experience, and it's time to start building that portfolio, which I'm going to be referencing in the next few slides. Building that OutSystems portfolio by sharing some of that knowledge that you've gained with the community. And one of the best ways of doing it is forge components. Super easy to do, and not even that, in addition to that, OutSystems has also recently, and I say recently, maybe a year or two ago, they've released a trusted badge, application badge, which you can actually apply for as someone who's submitting applications to the Forge. So why stop at just uploading Forge components, but also take it a step further and try to obtain that trusted badge. If you're not very familiar with it, it's essentially ensuring that your application follows OutSystems best practices. If you've leveraged AI Mentor before, it is essentially applying those practices into the Forge component, which you upload, and in essence, that creates that increased reliability of the components that you're publishing. And then finally, pushing the platform to its limits. So another kind of personal milestone I wanted to share here is in last year's conference, I had the opportunity to showcase something that started off as a kind of personal project of mine, which was actually rebuilding the UNO card game in OutSystems using out-of-the-box components. And the reason why I did that was I wanted to push the platform to its limits. So I wanted to see what we can do, what we can do, because it's going to be incredibly important to realize what are we working with, what are the things that we can't actually do within the platform, and what are the things that we can do with the platform. So thinking outside the box, tackling problems and challenges from different perspectives is going to be incredibly important to maintain enthusiasm within the platform. All right. Now, our final stage, the advocate. So at this particular stage, you've kind of had a lot of experience on your belt, and there's one primary question and two doubts that you'll be facing. Number one, how can I start sharing my experience with the community? I've gained a lot of experience, and it's only right for me to give back to the community like it gave me throughout my journey. So how can I give back? Right? And the common doubts here is the platform. So how do I do that? So I've got this knowledge bank. Where, how, what media or medium should I be using to do this? And then number two, with that experience that I've got, I've surely hit some limits within the platform in one area or another. How can I provide that feedback to OutSystems? And there's actually a lot of things that could be done here if you're an advocate. Number one, from an experience sharing perspective, one of the most powerful ways of sharing your experience could be writing articles, and this could be technical, this could be non-technical. Speaking at user groups, that's one of the very powerful ways, or conferences, for instance, and then being engaged in the forum. And this is also a really good way to start sharing that knowledge and giving back to the community. There's also a lot of other initiatives that pop up here and there, like for example, there are podcasts nowadays that talk about local, talk about OutSystems that could be leveraged here. But anything to start sharing this knowledge is going to be super important and super valuable in your OutSystems portfolio, because if we want to target MVP or champion or trainer, we need to have a solid portfolio. We need to have a robust portfolio to showcase your advocacy and to showcase your experience as well, and your willingness to help the community, because that's, in reality, that's what it's all about. Right? Number two, product development. So there's multiple streams here. So of course, the most common way and known way is the ideas section of the OutSystems community website. You can go and log in and submit an idea, and community members can vote for that idea, etc. But some of them lesser known streams here. Number one, the research program. So you can enroll in OutSystems research programs, which is very, very cool. You get to see some of the things that OutSystems is thinking about implementing or introducing in later versions of their platform. And you would utilize your kind of experience with those particular features to give OutSystems feedback before they do and say, no, I think this would work, this wouldn't work because of this previous experience, etc. And then finally, assisting with online documentation as well. That's something that OutSystems opens its doors for to advocates out there. And then finally, something that was mentioned and given a big shout out during Miguel's keynote session earlier today was becoming a mentor. So mentorship is becoming a more and more attractive option for OutSystems developers. Again, regardless where you are on your OutSystems journey, to master some of these skills and to improve your OutSystems development skills. And like Miguel very nicely put it, this does not necessarily only mean your technical development skills, but to become an OutSystems senior technical lead or a senior developer or a technical lead, there's a lot of kind of soft skills, but I might need to go into it as well. And there's also a lot of other aspects that you need to tackle, so solution architecture, like you put, for example, or integrations, etc. Right, where to from here? So we've climbed the 4 steps. I'm now at a stage where I've grown my portfolio to have, maybe a few articles, maybe some I've spoken for user groups. I do have certifications under my belt to prove my technical knowledge. What can I do? There's typically 3 primary options here. So MVPs, and the process of MVPs and champions are very similar. You go through a nomination process to get through to MVPs. But of course, the big prerequisite here is the robustness of that portfolio. If you've got these user groups and these articles on your belt, if you even specialize in a specific area, so let's say, for example, I am very, very interested about the integration side of things with OutSystems. If you specialize your content and the talks that you do or the articles that you write within that specific specialization, it could be something that's very valuable for OutSystems and for communities like these, because as being part of advocate programs like MVP and Champions, there are a lot of conversations that happen internally about specific areas. So you might have MVPs that are specialized in forums, for instance. So MVPs that specialize with articles, for instance. So having a specialization definitely helps. And then of course you've got the trainer route, and this is more primarily focusing on, of course, the mentorship side of things, but more specifically applying and going through the OutSystems boot camps to assist developers to grow within their journey. Right? The QR code, sorry, super quickly here, the QR codes are links to the different advocacy programs on the OutSystems website if you want to read a little more information about the prerequisites there. Okay, and just before I conclude, I wanted to touch point on a super important topic here, and this is going to be more related to individuals who want to build successful OutSystems development teams. I truly believe that the quickest way to accelerate your growth within the world of OutSystems is to be surrounded by people, that actually applies not just OutSystems of course, but any passion that you've got, is to be surrounded by a group of people that share that same passion. If I work on a daily basis with teams that want to be the best in OutSystems, want to be advocates, they've got that technical wealth, then naturally you're going to be picking up that passion, and that's going to ignite your passion even further. For me, that was Phoenix DX, of course. And Phoenix DX at the moment ranks number 4 in Australia when it comes to best places to work, best workspaces in the technology stream. There are 6 MVPs at the moment in Phoenix DX, so that's the most number of MVPs in one organization in the world, and 3 trainers as well. So as you can see, there is that wealth and bank of knowledge that Phoenix DX got. But I'll take it a step further than that. I do believe in order to build successful teams, and something I wanted to share here with you today, 2 streams that I wanted to focus on. Number 1 is career development. And from a career development, there's multiple things here I want to mention. Number 1, within Phoenix DX, we've got the concept of career train stops when it comes to the different roles that we've got. So if you can imagine, and you might have seen this coming in if you took the subway or the train lines and where they intersect in particular train stops. At Phoenix DX, we've got growth plans which actually mimic that view. So you might have, for example, a developer train line which intersects the technical lead role at the senior developer stage. So I can, as a senior developer, decide, okay, it's time for me to take the next step and I want to jump into technical leadership. So once I get to that particular stop, which is senior developer, I can shift focus. Or, for instance, architecture perspective. So from a TL point of view, I can say, you know what, I wanted to delve into the solution architecture world. There is a train stop when it comes to TL and solution architecture, so I can do that. In essence, what I'm trying to say, giving the team that opportunity and that visibility and the support in order to help them shape their career the way that they want to is super, super powerful to achieve this. Right? Something that goes alongside this super closely is individualized growth plans. So depending where you are in that particular train line or what step, the ability to have growth plans for our team members based on where they are, based on where they want to be, and some of the challenges that goes along with that is incredibly effective and important. And then, of course, this is all complemented with mentorship. And here we're talking about not only technical mentorship, but also soft skill mentorship. As we know, from a developer point of view, I might be the greatest developer in the world, but if I wanted to jump into the TL mentorship side of the TL world side of things, I need to know a little more than my hard skills. I need to be able to lead teams. I want to be able to have a bit of that consultative edge. So having soft skill mentorship is a super important point here, and that goes very well alongside the other 2 points. It is in essence a catalyst, if you like, which helps accelerate our team members going from one stage to another. And then the other pillar here I want to mention is community contributions. And this is super important, and this goes all the way back when I said the most important thing for us here is to start giving back to the community. So as our teams are growing within Phoenix DX, as they're gaining that knowledge, they are giving back to the community. And there's multiple ways that we do that. Starting off with something we refer to as Dev Digest. And in essence, Dev Digest is a consolidation of dev tips, videos, articles that Phoenix DX team members put together based on the experience and the technical challenges that they have been encountering to be shared with the community. And this QR code actually takes you directly to that, and we're very active on that thread. And the second point here is user groups. So Phoenix DX looks after the user groups in the Australian East Coast. We organize one every 1 to 2 months. And like I said previously when I touched on user groups, it really depends on what are the topics that we're going to be discussing. It could be something that's related to what's happening at the moment, or it could be something as simple as, how to, for example, a type of session where there's a particular challenge that we faced previously and how we implemented that solution for that particular challenge. Okay? And just to conclude, leave with a quote: the only people who achieve much are those who want knowledge so badly that they seek it. All conditions are still unfavorable. Favorable conditions never come. Please, if you're facing any challenges with OutSystems, your OutSystems journey, don't be shy. Reach out. Don't feel like you've reached the end of the road here. The OutSystems community is always open and welcome for assisting you. So just say hi, and we're here. Thank you very much.